All right, let's dig into this a little bit more and really take a look at it from a legal lens with Elliot Stein, litigation analyst with Bloomberg Intelligence. So, Elliot, oh my gosh, we can do a whole show just on this, right? Or a whole half day on this with you.
Exactly.
I guess first off, we know the president can fire someone like Cook for cause. She has not been convicted of any wrongdoing. So, on its face, does this stand a chance, this firing?
I mean, it stands a chance, but as you said, there's really been no investigation. So these are just allegations at this point made by the FHFA director, and then, the president sort of adopted the allegations as well. So, whether that meets the for-cause standard is definitely an open question. I think Governor Cook would have good arguments that without an investigation, or until there's an investigation that establishes some sort of wrongdoing, the administration has not met the for-cause standard.
So, Elliot, Cook has said, you know what, I want to stay in the position. Can she challenge this?
Yeah, I think she absolutely can. I would expect her to file a lawsuit challenging the termination, just like you've seen many commissioners of various agencies do as they've been terminated from agencies like the NLRB or the FTC. But there is a distinction, as the Supreme Court articulated in May, because for most agencies, if there is a for-cause standard, it's likely that the Supreme Court would hold that for-cause standard unconstitutional. But in May, the Supreme Court said that it hinted strongly that the for-cause standard for Federal Reserve governors would be constitutional. So there is a distinction, but I would anticipate a lawsuit by Governor Cook to challenge her termination.
And of course, forcing out Cook really gives Trump the opportunity to continue to reshape the Federal Reserve. We already know Powell won't be around after his tenure is up in May. And let's remember, Trump actually put Powell in that position back in 2018, right? What a few years can really change things. But what would that mean? He would then have, I believe, a 4-person majority on the Fed's 7-member governor board. So what would that mean, do you think? What could that mean for the Fed's independence?
Yeah, well, I think what Trump is trying to do here, right, is to get a majority on the FOMC, because that's the body that actually establishes interest rates, right? So just having 4 on the Federal Reserve Board doesn't get you enough votes on the FOMC, because there's also 5 other Federal Reserve. There are 5 Reserve Bank presidents who serve on the FOMC, in addition to the 7 Federal Reserve Board governors. So what's interesting is in February of 2026, the Federal Reserve Board will have the opportunity to reappoint all the Reserve Bank presidents. And I think that is the vote that Trump has an eye on, because if he can get Cook out, even if he doesn't replace her, if she's out while the litigation, progresses, you essentially have a 3-3 deadlock in terms of Trump appointees versus non-Trump appointees, because you would have Stephen Moran if he's confirmed, you would have Mickey Bowman, and you would have Chris Waller, right, who potentially could vote not to reappoint Reserve Bank presidents. And from there, you start to see a different composition of the FOMC that potentially becomes more favorable to Trump.
Well, Elliot, I have to ask you, because you mentioned Cook could, file a lawsuit. Would she stay in the role if this were to happen? And then, dare I ask, what's the possible timeline for something like this?
Yeah, I think that is going to be the first major critical issue that gets litigated, because the actual merits of the case will take months, if not, more than a year, as you wind through all the appeals as well. But the issue of whether she stays on or not while the litigation plays out can be decided relatively quickly, because if she files a lawsuit, she'll file, a preliminary injunction to essentially put on hold her termination, and then she can stay on the board. That can be resolved, I think, in a matter of several weeks. I think it can go all the way up to the Supreme Court by year end, just on that particular issue. So we may have clarity on that by February. And that, again, is, I think, the critical date for President Trump.
But I guess, look, we have a Fed meeting, right, coming up in just a few weeks. Would she be part of that? I know I'm asking you to look into a crystal ball, and
that's what we try to do.
But would she, if she were on the board still while this litigation was going on, would she be able to still vote? Which she can do, or she could do at least Friday.
Yeah, if the courts essentially granted her a preliminary injunction to stay on the board while the litigation plays out, yes, then she can vote in September. But even if she's not on the board in September, that's just one vote out of 12. So I'm not sure that's going to make all that much of a difference when you only had 2 dissenting votes in July.
All right, Elliot Stein, Bloomberg Intelligence litigation analyst.